there really is, a lot of people think there's a lot of efforts going out to cure aging. Nobody's really doing it because the gauges of success are not curing aging. They're all about number of publications you can get, the amount of return on investment you can get for your investors, fame, things like that. There's only a handful of us that are actually not interested in publications or money or anything, but just want to cure this dumb thing called aging.
Behind the practice.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Behind the Practice. I'm sitting down with Dr. Bill Andrews. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode.
Thank you for having me.
And so for our audience that might not be familiar with you, tell the audience a little bit about what it is that you do.
I've been on a quest my entire life to understand aging because I really want to do something about it. I call it curing aging, which means I want to cure all the things that cause us to age. And also I want to reverse aging. But I think living's the greatest thing that ever happened to us, and I love living, and I hate the idea that living can be any less lovable for any of us because of this dumb thing called aging. So, I mean, I've spent my entire life building an arsenal of tools through college and graduate school and everything I can to really do something about the aging process because I don't believe it's necessary at all. And I've learned a lot, and I've learned it is not necessary. I studied things like why we age, because I've always understood, why did we never evolve a way not to age? And aging is so bad for us. Well, now I completely understand, okay, because all of my training was called population genetics, which is the how and, or it's the how and why of evolution, not the what and when, which is what most people usually hear. So why did we never evolve and way to stop it? This is me. I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but I've also, how do we age? How does the aging process occur? All the theories don't make sense. I always say all the twos and twos have to add up. I wanted to figure it out. And then also, so what is aging? Nobody knows. There's no way to measure aging. There's all kinds of biomarkers you can measure, but when you reverse the biomarkers, you only reverse the biomarker. You don't reverse aging. It's like what I do is when I talk about what I call the Betty White test.
Okay.
And Betty White was a friend of my family's because my father was a TV producer doing game shows, and she was staying at our house all the time. She gave me permission to call this the Betty White test before she passed away. But it's like, I'll show a picture of Betty White at 85 and 25, and I'll say, anybody here not know which photo was taken first? And so everybody will laugh, but everybody knows what aging is. We just don't have any way of measuring it. So I say that if some company claims to have reversed aging, if they didn't pass what I call the Betty White test, gone from 85 to 25, looking, feeling, and behaving like she's 25 again. Not too bad she passed away. It just bothers me immensely. If they don't pass that test, they have not reversed aging. They've only reversed the biomarker. But those are the kind of things. My gauge of success is I have not succeeded in reversing aging until somebody passes the Betty White test.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is aging? So the what, why, how, and how not of aging are the main things I focus on. But there's so much more. And
like we were talking about before we pressed record here, you were telling us that this is something you've been passionate about since you were 10 years old.
Yeah. My father talked me into getting, or not, he didn't talk me into it. He just said to me, you should grow up, become a doctor, and find a cure for aging. And I thought, what a great idea. And I've been on it ever since.
Well, I love that. And I think that it gives all of us the opportunity to, I guess, learn a little bit more about how you're making that difference. So talk to us a little bit about what steps you're making to help with that whole concept of aging.
Well, the main thing is really trying to understand it, because even after I got my PhD in population genetics and molecular genetics is really to understand how to control aging. But when I was all ready to start really working on it, I decided nobody knows what aging is, why we age, how not to age. It's a whole bunch of theories that don't make any sense. All the twos and twos have to add up, and they did not. And so I went into biotech instead and, had a very successful career, everything from being an inventor of human growth hormone, tissue plasminogen inactivator, a whole bunch of things. But it really took about another 10 years before somebody discovered that aging, so our human cells can only divide a limited number of times, which used to really bother me because we aren't like old trucks sitting in a field exposed to sun, wind, rain, and that causes us to age. Humans, unlike trucks, have cells, other cells that can divide to replace the killed cells. So by that sense, we should never age. So why do we? But then when it was discovered by Leonard Hayflick that human cells can only divide a limited number of times, it started making sense.
Why?
Okay, so we can't repair our dead cells all the time. So now that would explain aging. But then I started thinking, how do cells know how many times they divide? They don't have brains. How do cells count?
Yeah.
How do they, and so even when I was in college and I was doing anti-aging clubs that actually had some future Nobel Prize winners in that club, we were having discussions about how could a cell know how many times it has divided and how many more times it can divide.
Yeah.
And the only thing, it's going to sound silly, but the only thing we could come up with that was a biochemical mechanism that could be explained was there had to be something like ride tickets at an amusement park inside of our cells. And every time a cell divided, somehow it lost a ticket. But now the next pandemonium started, where were these ride tickets? Nobody had ever come up with anything that actually made any sense about what these ride tickets were.
Yeah.
But then 10 years after I got my PhD, I was sitting in an anti-aging conference and heard somebody say that every time a human cell divides, the tips of our chromosomes get a little bit shorter. And I started thinking, oh my God, there's the ride tickets. And he was saying, I can measure the length of people's telomeres, whether tips are chromosomes. I can tell how old a person is and how many more times, how much longer they can live. And I was thinking, and he said, better than a palm reader. I was thinking, my God, this is it. So before that guy could even get off the stage, I said to him, if every time our cells divide, we lose a ride ticket, how is it our children are born with longer telomeres than we have when it required cell division to make our children?
Yeah.
And he said, well, we don't know, but we believe that there's some type of enzyme inside of our reproductive cells that re-lengthens our telomeres. So I just said, because I'd already had an extremely successful career in biotech, as
Yeah.
I only mentioned half of it. I was actually National Inventor of the Year in the United States for my cancer research. So I'd been a very successful career, but I just said to him, because I was obsessed with this subject, I said, let me come and work with you and I'll have it figured out in 3 months. And he said, sure, right off the spot, because he knew of my track record. And 3 months later, I discovered human telomerase. When I say I mean my team. He put 45 of his scientists reporting to me. So I conducted this like Manhattan project to figure it out. And we figured it out in 3 months. We discovered this enzyme called human telomerase. We put it into skin cells in a petri dish and showed that they no longer had a limited number of cell divisions. They could divide indefinitely without becoming cancer, which is really important because a lot of people thought, well, if the cells keeps dividing, isn't that cancer? Cancer is when cells start dividing out of control. When we put this telomerase gene to produce telomerase into these cells, they still divided under control, which meant they weren't cancer. But the cells remained healthy and continued to do their job. So that made headline news.
Yeah.
Back in, I want to say 1998, I think it was, when we published that. And unfortunately, at the same time, I'd also shown that inhibiting this enzyme telomerase actually caused cancer cells to die of old age at an accelerated rate. And the company, Geron Corporation, even though their name is Geron, short for gerontology, they decided to become a cancer company. They told me to stop working on aging. The investors, this is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Investors are more interested in return on their investment than they are on curing diseases. So they told me to stop working on aging and focus on cancer. I'd already be National Inventor of the Year for my cancer research.
Yeah.
I left that all to go work on aging. So I started my own company called Sierra Sciences, and I've been focusing on aging ever since.
Well, what is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about aging?
Well, that it's inevitable. I mean, it has to happen. People don't realize there are life forms on this planet that have no detectable aging. That includes lobsters, humpback whales, some sharks, some fish, tortoises.
The turtle is what I was thinking of. Was
they do die. I mean, Darwin's pet tortoise, Harriet was her name.
Okay.
She died at 180 or something like that, but not from aging. She got infected with something or something like that. And some famous tortoise is like over 200 now or something like that, but he's still healthy. It's a lot of people like to say, well, there's jellyfish, they don't age. Redwood trees don't age, or some type of trees don't age, but they're very different than humans. I mean,
Yeah.
and so it turns out that aging is not inevitable because some organisms can overcome the aging, but any animal that has telomere shortening, which is my main subject, does age, and that we can't stop that. And the only animals that have been shown to age by telomere shortening so far are humans, other non-human primates, except for lemurs, which might be closer to mice than humans, dogs, cats, horses, sheep, pig, and deer. They're the only animals that have been shown to age by telomere shortening. And notice I didn't say mice.
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah.
Rodents and rabbits and rats. It's because rodents, their telomere biology is extremely different from humans, and that makes rodents extremely unuseful organisms to be studying human aging in.
Yeah.
So I'm in all my talks and stuff like that, I recommend that we look at pygmy marmosets instead of mice, because they're small like mice. We can do big studies. Their lifespan's a little longer than mice, but they're not long enough that we can't treat older mice and still get results just as fast as we can with mice. And nobody's doing it because mice are so standard, but everything we get from learning about aging in mice is completely useless to humans. But yeah, the biggest misconception I would say about aging is that there really is, a lot of people think there's a lot of efforts going out to cure aging, or I say cure, I mean to get rid of all the things that cure all the things that causes us to age and stuff like that. Nobody's really doing it because the gauges of success are not curing aging. They're all about number of publications you can get, the amount of return on investment you can get for your investors, fame, things like that. There's only a handful of us that are actually not interested in publications or money or anything. They just want to cure this dumb thing called aging.
And it seems like there's science out there to back what you're saying. You've won Venture of the Year. You've made strides in this. Why would anyone have any sort of resistance for what you're trying to push out there and what you're doing?
Because everybody else working on other mechanisms of curing aging want people to believe that they have the cure for aging. They can slow it down. They can reverse it. And they can't succeed at doing that unless they speak badly about telomeres. The biggest rumor that people like to spread is that lengthening telomeres by telomerase will cause cancer. But, I did a keynote talk in Tokyo in 2017. It's all video recorded. People can go watch it on YouTube. And I spent an hour explaining why that's not true. The exact opposite is true. Producing telomerase and lengthening telomeres actually decreases the risk of cancer. It's short telomeres. When telomeres get short, causes mutations, rates to skyrocket. Remember, I was national inventor in the United States for my cancer research. I know a lot about cancer. Short telomeres cause mutation rates to cause cancer. Causes things called chromotherpes and catagis, which is different things you can actually see, mutations in the microscope, in the light microscope, when you have cancer. And that's caused from telomere shortening. So keeping telomeres long decreases the risk of cancer. Plus, one of the best defenses we have against cancer is our immune system. We get cancer every one of 7 times a day, but we never know it because our immune system is so good at fighting it. When telomeres get shorter, our immune cells will lose the ability to immune system to fight the cancer, and we get cancer because we have immune senescence. So lengthening telomeres helps our immune system fight cancers, reduces the mutation rates. People can still get cancer, but they're going to get more likely to get cancer without having telomerase in their cells than having telomerase in their cells.
So we talked briefly about you making the decision to go out on your own. So
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about that decision and what you are shaping now with your business.
I made that decision more than once. I mean, when I was at a company called Burlex Biosciences, where I had a really great track record of getting a lot of cures and diseases done. And I left them to go work at Geron Corporation after hearing that they were working on telomere, trying to figure out the telomere shortening problem. But then I left Geron when they said, well, they were going to stop working on aging, we're going to focus on cancer. So I started Sierra Sciences with the number one purpose, only purpose of Sierra Sciences, to find a cure for aging. And the obstacle has been only the funding. We know exactly what to do. It's, when I first started Sierra Sciences, because of my track record, I had no problems finding investors. I found 50 investors really fast, raised $33 million, thought we'll have aging cured in 3 years. Then the investors all wanted me to work on other things to get them quick return on their investments and things like that. So I said, sure, we'll get back to aging later. So I did all these things to add value to the company. And then when I succeeded at that, they said, we're going to sell the company. Now that you got so much value added to the company, I was shocked. It cost me everything I had to buy back the company. So I'm now 100% owner. I would never, ever let traditional investors invest in my company again, because they are more interested in their quick return on their financial investments, not their humanitarian investments, than they are in curing diseases and things like that. So I'm now struggling on my own. I have licensed some of our discoveries to other companies so they can market them, and we get a royalty, and that's how I fund my research now, when they sell the products. In fact, one of the companies is actually here. It's called Touchstone Essentials, which actually is very tough for me to actually join forces with a marketing company like that. Touchstone Essentials has turned out to be the exact opposite of every other company I've worked with. They, when I told them that no other company wants to sell my inventions because the profit margin isn't high enough, they said they don't care about profit margins. So I've been really hooked on this company. But they're now selling a product that I invented or discovered the ingredients of, called Telovital, which is really the only product on the planet that actually does induce the production of telomeres. And when I said, I said only product, it's the only nutraceutical product, because there is things like gene therapies or things like that actually produce telomeres too, but they're super expensive and risky. But they sell this product called Telovital that induces the production of telomeres. It doesn't win the tug of war between shortening and lengthening, but it does slow it down. So people are going to live longer and healthier because of this product. And, it's like, it turns out that when telomeres get critically short, they become easier to lengthen. So in the longer lived people, I don't like using old, because life's about living, not getting old. The longer lived people, and longer lived means anybody who lived longer than it takes to raise your young. These people are showing some age reversal, which can only be explained by the fact that critically short telomeres are easier to lengthen. And during the talk that I just gave, I explained how telomeres are like a ball of yarn. The tip is buried in the ball of yarn, and when the ball of yarn is big, telomeres can't get to the tip to lengthen it. When telomeres get short, it becomes easier, so they get lengthened. So they're here, but the question becomes, and I talked about this during my talk today, why is it that some companies are claiming that they lengthen telomeres? And I explained they aren't lengthening telomeres, they're just causing a redistribution of cells in the body to be either removing cells with short telomeres from the blood or adding new cells to the blood that have long telomeres. Just as if you had a company, you fired your dumbest employees or you hired geniuses, the average IQ of your company increases in both cases without anybody getting any smarter. Well, some of these products, they're taking away cells with short telomeres, adding new cells with long telomeres, and the average length of your telomeres are getting longer without any lengthening. Okay, now somebody will say, well, that's good. And I said, no, it's not, because it was at the expense of other cells in your body shortening to be able to do that. And so the net result is you're body has shorter telomeres, not longer telomeres. So, but Telovital is the only one that actually does induce telomerase and lengthen telomeres. And so, I always say, people be careful.
Yeah.
Ask the company if they have any data showing their product produces telomerase, because if it does not,
Yeah.
you actually are shortening your telomeres in your whole body. Not.
So, last question that I have for you as we wrap up this episode. Let's go into the future. What does healthcare look like 20 years from now?
Oh, I wish you said 100 years from now. But
Well, I mean, I want to see it. I want to see 20 years from now, because we'll both still be here to see that change, right?
20 years from now, I'm very terrified about what's called the silver tsunami. Okay, the baby boomers are all turning 65 and 75 and stuff like that. They are so close to needing hospices, assisted living homes, nursing homes, caregivers. And there's not enough young people around
Yeah.
to be taking care of these people. This is called the silver tsunami. We're going to have a very high number of old, longer-lived people, so many longer-lived people in the world, that we're not going to have enough young people to take care of them. And I call them shorter-lived people. This is called the silver tsunami. I am making pitches to robotic companies to start focusing on making robots to do caregiving, because I mean, we have to have the people that need care living in their homes with their families, but not being a burden to their families. Because one thing I talk about is how caregivers actually have accelerated aging because of the stress.
100%.
So believe me, every penny that I donate from profits and stuff like that when we make a serious science goes to caregiving.
Yeah.
But that's the big problem. I think the solution is the robotic caregiving, but the solution is let's make the longer lived young. Okay, that's the way to do it. And I think that what the research I'm kind of doing is going to do that. But there's so much opposition. Even people at the National Institutes of Aging and National Institutes of Health and the FDA are saying to me all the time, they're stopping me after presentations. They're saying, we'll never let you test a cure for aging because aging isn't a disease. Well, I think it is a disease, and after I cure it, they'll know it's the disease. They think the world will be a horrible place after we cure aging, because how will the young ever get jobs if the longer live never retire? And I think to myself, the problems are now. Where it's like people, I do spend time. I have 100-plus-year-old friends that are in hospices and nursing homes. I go visit them. It's horrible. People don't realize what a large number of people are stuck in these homes, and it's miserable. It's depressing and stuff like that. We need to get away from this type of life, and it's only going to get worse unless we find a cure for aging soon.
Yeah.
And I'm running into so many obstacles with funding and politics, the bureaucracy, competition, and interference and things like that. These are the big obstacles. I'm fighting along with Joseph Krieger, who's the organizer of this conference, who I think is one of the biggest believers in finding ways to keep us young and healthy for as long as possible. Elizabeth Parrish, who was going to speak tomorrow, she's not here today. Those three people are practically the only people I know of that are like-minded with me, that nothing else matters. We're not in it for the publications or the profits or anything like that. We just want
to make change
and healthier.
I love it. Well, Dr. Bill Andrews, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Behind the Practice. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had fun.
Behind the Practice is produced by Next Step Social and Podcasting and hosted by Katie Brinkley and Sean Quintero. A special thank you to our guests today. This episode was recorded live at the Boston BioLife Functional Longevity Summit. A special thank you to the team that helped make this podcast happen.